Hey, I don't know if you're like me, but I have Alexa. And if you don't know what Alexa is, then never mind. But if you do know what Alexa is from Amazon, you can use Alexa for all kinds of things. And they have free apps, or some you have to pay for, some are free. If you use Alexa, you can use my app. I have an app called Daily Christian Encouragement. You can download it for free, listen to it every day. And if you don't know what this is or this is confusing to you, go to my website, davidpendergrass.com, click on the podcast, and you can scroll down. You'll see on the left side exactly how to do it. Now, all you have to do is enable the skill, Daily Christian Encouragement, and then you ask her, what is my flash briefing? That's it. So go to my website, davidpendergrass.com. It'll tell you more. Also, if you're like me, you like encouragement. In addition to that app, if you don't have Alexa, or if you do, you can get that as well. But also, you can have me text you. Did you know that? Maybe you don't care. That's fine with me. But if you do, and you like to receive free text of encouragement, hey, here you can sign up. All you got to do is, on your cell phone, text the number 555-888. And you text this word, DP Ministries, and that's it. It will sign you up and you're ready to go. That's it. So one more time, 555-888. You text the word, all one word, DP Ministries, David Pendergrass Ministries, DP Ministries, plural. That's it. And you'll sign up. Now, of course, it's free to sign up, but your cell phone carrier charges you texting charges like any cell phone does. So if you want that, 555-888, DP Ministries. I send out random encouraging texts. And of course, your Alexa app, go for that. Tell your friends about it. Even you can tell your friends about the encouraging text if you want. God bless. Hope it helps. Hello, thank you for listening to A Glimpse of the Kingdom. I am David Pendergrass. I received a question the other day from a faithful listener, Ryan. I really appreciate Ryan. Ryan's been just a good encouragement to me, and encourager and challenger, and appreciate him. He asked a couple questions. Here's the first one. He says, a lot of atheists and skeptics say that, quote, we don't know the answer yet, but someday science will figure it out. Typically, Christian scholars and apologists respond that there are things that can never be proven scientifically. He put that is God's existence, love, metaphysics, etc. But how do we know that science can eventually figure out certain things? What if 500 years from now, there's a new branch of science that is developed which can test and prove things empirically that today we think can't be proven empirically? In other words, like your fishbowl illustration, what if science can one day prove things outside of the fishbowl? Good question. If you don't know my fishbowl analogy, and he does, and that's so cool. I'm so glad he does. I give a fishbowl analogy in my book, and I guess also in some of my presentations, and that is, of course, a person who is a naturalist, someone who believes that in their worldview, all that exists is made of nature. And so you can say materialist. They're basically synonymous, it seems to me. The way they're used always, that is, a person who believes in all that exists is material or natural. So matter and energy. Energy and matter are interchangeable, of course, at the basic level, and that's all that exists. And so my analogy of the fishbowl, I say that a naturalist and a theist they're two fish talking in the fishbowl, and they say, hey, where do you think that food comes from at the top of the water? And the theist says, I think it comes from a source outside the fishbowl. The naturalist goes, that's just so stupid. That's so stupid. We all know that all that exists is the fishbowl. And the theist says, well, then where does the food come from? And the naturalist fish says, well, we don't know yet, but scientist fish are going to figure it out one day. We're going to figure out that the bowl itself and the water in the bowl can produce substances that are unlike anything in the bowl whatsoever. Some kind of phenomenal quantum thing produces something we call food that has a different composition, a different chemical composition and everything than everything we experience in life. It's going to figure it out just one day. The theist says, no, you won't. No, you won't. Well, the good question, Ryan. My response is, how do we know? The answer is, because of the nature of the thing. And I also say that in my book as well to the skeptic, that because of the nature of the thing. And that is I'm not being coy, but that is the answer. The nature of the thing itself. For example, the nature of numbers. Numbers are abstract objects. That's it. Numbers. The number 4 is not comprised of any kind of matter and energy, period. It's just not, you know that, of course. That's one example. The number 4, no number at all whatsoever is even remotely made of matter and energy. Everybody knows it's just a concept. Now you might say, and there's different debates of the origin of mathematics. Maybe it comes out of laws of logic. Others say it's really abstract object. Some say it's a concrete abstract object. That is to say, it's Platonic. Others, typically in Christianity and Muslims and Jews, typically say that numbers themselves are predicated or grounded in the mind of God, as it were. But fine, they're different theories. But what basically everyone agrees is that, even a hardcore naturalist would say numbers themselves aren't made of matter and energy. That's one example, and I'll give a few more. But the answer is, that's one example. There are things like numbers. Numbers will never, ever, ever be discovered on a planet, in a black hole, at the quantum level. It won't happen. Now that matters because the scientific method only studies matter and energy. So if something by nature is not comprised of matter and energy, then scientific method will never, ever discover it. Ever, ever. It can't occur. Just cannot occur. It's the nature of the thing itself by definition. It's like saying, what if scientists one day, is it possible for scientists one day to discover that bachelors really are married? That bachelors really are married. What if one day a different kind of science develops that says, oh, come to find out bachelors were married all along? Of course, the answer is they can't. That will never happen. That is, in logic, we call that a category error. So it's in the nature of the thing itself. Bachelor, by definition, by nature, is unmarried, and unless we change the definition of bachelor. But then I'm still not, okay, let's make up a new word. What's the word for the person who is unmarried? Then that word will never be discovered. You just have the definition. So we can go all kinds of, and examples you gave, of course, I've given, but the existence of God itself, God the Father and God the Spirit are not comprised. They don't have any flesh at all. So it's impossible for there to ever be any scientific method or even new science that explores matter and energy, which would discover God, aesthetic values, morality itself. And people say, no, morality just comes from our evolutionary. It's been fobbed off on us because we have to be in a tribe. We have to get along with each other, which is patent nonsense. But anyway, even if I said that's where it came from, it doesn't mean it's false. That's the genetic fallacy. And if I discover how I came to know it, that is, if I was taught it, it's not true. That's also nonsense because that's epistemology, how we came to know something. And discovering how we know something doesn't mean it's not the same as the ontology of morality, which is the grounding of it. How do I know it is right to be honest versus it is wrong to lie in general, that value. So morality by definition is not made of matter and energy. If someone pushes you on that and say, no, clearly this is just part of our brain or tribalism, well, tribalism's not brain, so let's knock that one out. It can't be that. It can't be matter of energy is the tribe. That doesn't make any sense. Well, it's part of our DNA. Well, then the question is, can science discover a molecule called honesty? Or rather, it's good to tell the truth, the moral duty? By definition, I would say that's just nonsense. That's never, ever going to happen. Ever. What would it even look like? How would even... So no matter what the brand of science, no matter how branches they come up with, which I don't think there's a different kind of... There might be subsets of scientific methods, but in general, the scientific method only deals with matter and energy. So that's the answer that's my answer, not the answer, but maybe it is the answer too. But my answer is because of the nature of the things being explored. There are things, and I say this in my book, and maybe I messed up, but I think I said this. I wrote it a few years ago now. There are some things which I do, in fact, hold out that science might be able to explain. It might be able to explain for sure whether or not there are multiple universes. That's in matter and energy. Great. Things like that. Great. But what about things like DNA? No. By definition, DNA is information. By definition, it's information. Information is not matter and energy. Information is arranging matter and energy in such a way that it gives meaning. But you have to have a subject, a person for which to have meaning. It doesn't. Rocks don't have minds. I mean, you see what I'm saying? So there's no wind doesn't blow sticks in certain order, and even if it did, wind is wind. It doesn't have information. So that's the problem. DNA is by default, by definition, by its essence, information. Information comes from a mind. So it just doesn't make any sense at all to think that any information arose from non-rational processes. That's it. I mean, and I'm not a biologist, but everyone I've ever read, ever heard, ever in my life tells me emphatically. Richard Dawkins, Mr. Atheist himself, is emphatic on this point. Everyone knows that DNA is in fact information. It is complex coding software coding. And so there's no way science would discover where information came from, because you have to have a mind for that, and matter and energy is not a mind. I make this distinction because it's real important to understand that's not a God of the gaps argument. And this is the point I make in my book. It's not a God of the gaps argument. It's a logical argument. And in logic, this is called a category error. If a person says that, oh, you can discover this in this field, you've committed a category error. It's like saying, what does the color red taste like? What color is 4? Well, some people have a particular condition where they actually do associate colors with numbers, but ontologically it's not the same. So anyway, the point is you can't. It's a category error. That's it. It's not the same as saying, I don't know exactly where black holes are formed, or I don't know exactly what dark matter and dark energy is, therefore God did it. Will that be classic God of the gaps? But that's not what I argue. No, I don't know of any educated theist who ever argues that way, that when there are gaps in scientific knowledge, therefore God did it. What I have read and what I believe are there are certain things, the nature of those things themselves dictate, they tell us, they force us to the conclusion, there ain't no way that science itself will ever discover that, ever, because it's a category error. And when people and scientific atheists and skeptics respond, oh, you're just God of the gaps, it demonstrates ignorance on their part on multiple levels. One, it means they're either incompetent, or they weren't listening, or they're lying. They do understand it, but they're being deceptive. There's only 3 options. So let's assume they're just incompetent, which is probably the best of the 3 options, maybe. I don't know. And that is, they don't know what the argument actually is. I don't know of any educated Christian who says, we don't know what dark matter energy is, therefore God's pushing planets away, and they're going faster at a speed of, they're going to go fast, they're getting faster and faster. I don't know. Who says that? Who says that? I mean, I don't know of anybody. That'd be a God of the gaps. What Christian thinkers have said for a long, long time is, there are certain things that as we discover them or get more clarity on them, we realize they are outside of the bounds of what science could ever discover. Now that ticks off skeptics because they believe in scientism most of the time. That is, all truth comes from science. Not some truth, but all truth and reality comes from science. Therefore, there can't be something outside of matter and energy and the laws of nature. There can't be. Why? Because that's all that exists, and science explains everything. Now, that still is very popular online and websites, but in the scholarship, that's gibberish. I mean, that's certainly in philosophy. That was abandoned almost 100 years ago. That was called logical positivism. And, I mean, no one believes that in philosophy anymore, but certainly scientists do sometimes. But so when they respond back to me, David, yeah, give it time. Peter Atkins says it all the time. Dr. Peter Atkins, give it time, give it time, give it time. My response is, you can give it all the time you want. All the time you want. Science will never tell us what 4 or 7 or 48 is made of. That's just a stupid, I'm sorry, I don't know what the word to say. It's stupid. It's nonsense. It's nonsense. And that's exactly, in my view, what consciousness is. And secondly, when I said a second ago, when people discover things, like when Watson and Hick discovered the helix pattern of DNA, when they discover that DNA is information code, well, no one knew that in the history of the universe. I'm sorry, no human did. No human knew that DNA was information until it was discovered. Well, we realize it is information. Well, then that's another thing we put in the category of, oh my goodness, is something we'll never be able to figure out because we've just discovered something that could not have come from here. And for me, that's why the fishbowl analogy works. When the food on the top of the bowl is comprised of chemicals and are characteristics that are unlike anything in the bowl, then nothing in the bowl can produce that. Seems to me that's how it is with like consciousness. It makes no sense that a non-rational evolutionary process could produce rationality. Rationality is not just an advanced kind of non-rationality. You've leapt over a massive chasm. It's like jumping over the Niagara Falls. You can't go from non-rational to one day you're rational. That's not how rationality is. That's not how consciousness is. It's not self-awareness, not self-conscious self-awareness. So it's a different kind of thing. It's just a different kind of thing. So anyway, if I'm wrong about all that, fine. But if I'm wrong, it's going to be wrong by definition or category, not because I know they have to redefine things. They would have to redefine DNA is no longer information. Okay, if it's no longer information, then you characterize it as something else. Well, then maybe science one day could figure out what DNA is. But as long as it's characterized and defined as information, it won't be able to discover it. As long as consciousness is described as almost everyone does, which is a non-material substance, non-immaterial. Same thing with God. God, let's say standard definition of God. God by definition, unless you start defining God in a different way, like Richard Dawkins did, this flying spaghetti monster, or like scientists do, like that big man in the sky. When you say stupid things like that, of course it's easier to debunk that. Of course it is. Because we've never discovered a God in the sky. That kind of God is make-believe. That kind of God is like Santa Claus. You don't just disbelieve in Santa Claus because it sounds silly. We have positive proof that he does not exist. We've been to the North Pole, he's not there. So when you define God in terms of matter and energy, yes, then one day science will figure it out. We'll figure out God never was there. When God by definition is not made of matter and energy, science can do what all it wants to. It's not going to happen. Not going to happen. One last analogy, I think of this often too when it comes to poetry. It's like, what if one day poets really do discover how to bake a cake? What if one day plumbers really can figure out what depression is? You see what I'm saying? You just jump over from field to field. The answer is they can't. That's nonsense. Poetry has nothing to do with the culinary arts. Nothing whatsoever. Nothing whatsoever to do with that. Plumbing has nothing to do with psychological states. They will never... they might have interactions from time to time, but they'll never discover it because it's different fields of inquiry. Well, that's what it is, seems to me, with a whole host of things like morality and consciousness and the existence of God and on and on. Hey, good question. I'll be right back for number 2.
Ever wonder what God wants you to do with your money? Should I give it all away or save? What did the early church do with their money? In Dr. Pendergrass's book, Give It Away, Reflections on How Christians Use Money, you'll get 4 short, powerful lessons on what to do with money based on some key texts from the New Testament. This is a wonderful guide for study and reflection. It even comes with reflection questions that are perfect for small group discussions. Give It Away, Reflections on How Christians Use Money. Buy your copies today on Amazon.com. Do you know of any skeptics in your family, at work, or among your friends? Do you struggle with questions concerning the existence of God or the truth claims of Christianity? Has a skeptic ever challenged you with a difficult question concerning your faith? Then you need to buy Dr. Pendergrass's book, A Skeptic Challenges a Christian, on Amazon.com. You can get it in paperback or on Kindle or in audiobook form to listen to. A Skeptic Challenges a Christian is written unlike any other book. It's not boring and full of technical jargon. It reads like you're sitting down having a conversation. As one reviewer said, as a college student, I absolutely love this book. Dr. Pendergrass knows how to effectively answer a lot of the questions that my friends at school ask about my faith. This book is a great resource for theological debates and for my own personal growth. The arguments are clear and understandable. I would definitely recommend this book to anyone who has questions about Christianity, wants to learn how to defend their faith, or even just wants a good read. Great book. Find out why it has a perfect 5-star rating on Amazon.com. A Skeptic Challenges a Christian. Buy your copies today. Do you like receiving a glimpse of the kingdom for free? Would you like to support what God is doing through these resources? Then please consider donating to David Pendergrass Ministries, Inc. today at davidpendergrass.com. There, you can also sign up to receive Dr. Pendergrass's free blog on a wide range of theological, biblical, and relationship issues. That's davidpendergrass.com.
All right, Ryan, here's the second question. Ryan asks this. He says, after the recent tragedy in Christchurch, New Zealand, I saw a posting on Facebook that showed a Twitter exchange with the first person explaining how the New Zealand government quickly took action to help prevent or reduce the chance of this kind of tragedy happening again. A responder very sarcastically replied, wow, did they even try thoughts and prayers? Do you think Christians should stop saying their thoughts and prayers are with someone or some area of the world after a tragedy? Not that people shouldn't be praying after tragedy or at any time, because I think they should, but maybe not express it on social media after a horrid mass shooting. Do you think it's becoming counterproductive? It seems to be a bit disingenuous at times. Also, on a related note, do you think the United States should take swift action like New Zealand did to try and prevent mass shootings? Thanks, David. Man, that's a good question, Ryan. I've got a couple questions. If you're not familiar, and if you're a listener, probably are, but at the time of this recording of the podcast, not too long ago, was the Christchurch mosque shootings when this terrorist came in, attacked in New Zealand, these mosques on Friday prayer, it's horrible enough, and it's certainly horrible when they're doing it when they're in the mosque, on the March 15th of 2019. And the guy live streamed it on Facebook. I mean, it's just horrible. It kills 50 people, injured 50 others. And this 28-year-old dude is a white supremacist who hates everything and whatever. And it's just horrible. Just horrible. And you're right, Ryan, I remember a lot of exchanges. Some politician, people call AOC and other stuff, talked about, oh, wow, thoughts and prayers and whatever. I appreciate what you said, Ryan. My first response is I agree with you that, of course, Christians ought to pray. One quick thing about that, because I think a long time ago, I did do a podcast on mass shootings, because this happens so often, unfortunately. Christians ought to pray, and there's nothing wrong, of course, in general with saying, I am praying, ought to pray. Why is that? Well, Christians believe, most do, and I certainly am one of them, that God has endowed human souls with the capacity to choose freely. By freely, I mean nothing or no one dictates their choices. Not that they are a different kind of freedom, where they are unbiased or uninfluenceable. Or that's not how I define freedom, and many philosophers don't define it that way. They define freedom as nothing compels me. No one or no action compels me to make that choice. No, there's no outside external cause. Well, I do believe that. I believe we do have free will. So when someone decides of their free will to make decisions over a long period of time to develop the character to hate Muslims and hate capitalism and hate whatever, hate America, hate whatever, and then they choose their free will to read literature, and they choose in their freedom to buy the guns, and in their freedom to foster this hate, and in their freedom on and on and on. And I mean, it was a long time coming. So in their freedom, they choose to murder, and that's of course. And if you're just a naturalist, if you're just an atheist, there's no reason to say this is wrong. You can say it's wrong. There's just no reason to say it's wrong. Again, we're just evolved chimps and evolved primates on a speck of dust in the middle of our galaxy. Who gives a rip? Who cares? What difference does it make? If we can kill everybody I want, you could make the argument that it was a good thing because those Muslims in those mosques were taking up precious resources of food and water and drink. In other words, there's no reason. But in a Christian worldview, that's, of course, horrific nonsense. It's evil and sick and twisted because it was murder. And murder is wrong. We have the moral duty to preserve life in almost every single instance. We don't do that kind of stuff. So my first response is, why pray? What difference does it make? Well, we pray because people can choose freely. They sure can. We do pray that God would provide for them in ways that would comfort them, console them, perhaps inspire people to rise up and be the church and not Islamic, and they would be Christ's hands and feet. Now, and that's a different issue, and I've done podcasts on prayer, but Christians, because of the New Testament, actually believe that when we talk to God and ask Him to do certain things, He can say no, He also can say yes. He actually takes our prayer request into consideration. So, yeah, we pray. I think we ought to pray for their comfort and consoling, just as the Apostle Paul does. And Jesus himself prayed for his disciples. He prayed that they would know. So you remember in John's Gospel, and Paul prays for his congregations all the time. If you say, well, Jesus was going to do that anyway, well, if he was, fine, we're still instructed to pray. But the text seems to assume that the prayer really doesn't matter. It makes a difference. So we should pray. But I appreciate very much your question is, should we do it in public? Should we put it on Facebook? And it seems disingenuous. I agree, Ryan. Personally, I do. Of course, I don't know a person's heart and mind, but there are times when people go, my thoughts and prayers, and they say it to me, or something goes through, particularly people who are pagans. When a non-Christian tells me that they tell me, my thoughts are with you. And I hear that on the news channel a lot, our thoughts and prayers. I mean, my response as a Christian is, I don't want you to think about me. Who cares if you think about me? I mean, who cares? Who cares if you think about me? Demons think about me. Satan thinks about me. Well, who cares? I don't. So personally, I don't care if anyone's thinking about me. I do care if they're praying for me. That I care a whole lot about that. So should we Christians do it? I think so. Should we always tell the person we're praying and so forth? I don't know. I would say that in general, unless a particular person who's very upset or particularly upset about hearing those words, maybe not. We ought to have wisdom. But in general, if it's someone we know, I would say tell them. In my experience, personally, and certainly probably every Christian I've ever met, they get encouragement. They feel comfort when someone says, I'm praying for you. So I say we say it, and we don't do it for show. We don't put someone, some people I've seen, it seems to me, and I'm not trying to sound judgmental, it just seems like this, that they want to put stuff on Facebook right away to like they said it first. Like they heard about some shooting or some bad thing on Facebook and say, my thoughts and prayers are with so-and-so right now. Like it's cutting edge and they broke the news first on Facebook or something. I wonder how much, I don't know. But anyway, but in general, I don't put prayers on Facebook for New Zealand because who in New Zealand knows me? I'm not friends with anybody in New Zealand. And why would I tell my friends on Facebook that I'm praying for New Zealand? What possible benefit would that be? I might have a rally cry. I might say, friends, please join with me in praying with the victims of New Zealand, these Muslim and others who were victimized. Please join me in prayer. That makes sense to me. But why would I just randomly say, I'm praying for Ryan? I'm praying for my dog. I don't see the purpose. And that's why, to me, it's easy for it to seem showy or disingenuous if, I don't know. And also, why even put it on Facebook publicly outside of a rally cry? Why not just Insta message or text the person right away and say, I'm praying for you? So I don't know. That seems like a showy thing outside of those experiences. But is it counterproductive? Again, to me, it might be if you're writing it about people, not to people. And that's the difference to me, I guess. If I'm saying I'm praying for the victims, well, then good for you, David. It's like saying I gave money to the victims of New Zealand. If I did that, well, why would I tell people that? So I don't get that part. But on that related note, do I think the United States should take swift action like New Zealand and prevent mass shootings? My own view is that, and I'm still formulating all this, my own view when it comes to that is pretty limited, and I'm not a constitutional specialist. My goodness, I'm not. My argument I do think the government should have strict requirements for gun possession. To me, it's very difficult to articulate at what point the gun should be limited. And I do think there's a valid argument to be made for automatic weapons not to be used for civilians. Only because, and here's why, only because it can cause much more harm. That's it. It can cause a lot more harm. And that's it. Now, I can kill people stabbing them. I can shoot them with one, and that happens all the time. And that's exactly why I think the argument that if we just take away guns from legal, law-abiding citizens, we'll be okay, is a demonstrably false, silly idea. It's just silly. People, the studies I've read demonstrate that's just silly. Most people who are law-abiding citizens don't go murder people. And the people who often get the guns, who murder people, some got them legally, and then went through all the background check, and they weren't automatic weapons. They just were single, whatever, which means then the cutoff, you're going to find a way to kill a person if you want to. But when it comes to if they want the gun illegally, they just steal it. They steal other people's houses, and then they go sell the gun. So then it means to be on the black market. So unfortunately, I don't think it's one answer solves all on this issue. And I don't think the United States has one single solve all, let's fix all the problems. Because if you want to kill someone, you're going to kill them. And then we have to ban knives and ban pencils and ban sticks, because everything can be used to kill a person. But I do feel the force of the argument, since there are some crazy people and also a lot of just evil people, and they like being evil, or they're whatever it is, misogynist or deep-seated hateful racist and so forth. If there's a way to delimit how many people they can hurt in their rampage, I would like that option. But again, I still get back to, and how will we make sure they don't have it? Because if you really want to go kill someone, you're going to find a gun on the black market. You're going to get an automatic weapon. So what will end up happening is the people who respect the law then won't purchase guns, and then they won't be able to defend people when they're shot. And so and that's, again, that I'll stop there. I don't have, unless there's some other person who wants to talk more about gun control and so forth. I do think some kind of gun control, I think stuff that just makes sense to me. I mean, just common level. And let me give one quick analogy. Of course, probably the reason why we go through such rigorous testing, I say such rigorous, it's somewhat rigorous testing, to receive his driver's license, is because when you drive, you are a risk to other people, pedestrians and drivers. Your vehicle can become a weapon very easily. And it is, right? I mean, it has been around the world. People use it to run into crowds. When you run into crowds, you have now weaponized that car. And so we want to go through some strict rules. You follow the rules, I mean, one time when I moved from one state to the other state and I had to update my license, they made me take the driver's test again, me and my mom. And I thought, oh my goodness, I haven't seen a driver's book in a long time, though I know how to drive. And that test was like 80% on alcohol. Constant. Do you know? I mean, you had to pick how many years jail sentence you'd get or whatever. I mean, there's tons. I think, I don't even drink. This is so irrelevant to me. But of course, the point is, hey, idiot, don't drink alcohol and then drive a vehicle, because it's going to probably hurt, injure, or kill yourself or someone else. More importantly, someone else. Well, there's a license process to that. I think owning a gun, which by default hurts the thing you're shooting. I mean, I don't have to hurt someone in my car, but a gun is supposed to hurt something. It's going to hurt that target. It's going to hurt the deer. It's going to hurt a human being. If we're using the criterion of it could cause real physical harm, guns, there should be rigorous testing to get one. Rigorous testing. And I have no problem with people being very picky. Same thing with a vehicle. I think getting a license by vehicle should be even more rigorous and picky. I think getting married, I think parenting. The problem is, how do we control who has sex and whether they have babies? I mean, you see my point. All these things can be very detrimental. I just think there's an argument for that. But anyway, having said that, I do want to pray for those victims, any victims of this, anybody. I mean, this stuff is just horrific. Christians ought to have no business ever making fun or hurting anybody ever. We just shouldn't ever. Muslims, Jews, non-Christians, whatever. Anyway, so we'll keep praying together. Thank you, Ryan, for your question, brother. That's what I think. Well, the conversation isn't finished. You can always reach out to me on social media. Are you on Facebook? I am too. At Glimpse of the Kingdom. Glimpse of the Kingdom on Facebook. Be sure to like it and you can see updates there. Also, if you're on Twitter, check me out at Dr. D. Pendergrass, at Dr. D. Pendergrass, or at Glimpse the King, at Glimpse the King, and I try my best to respond to comments and questions on there as quickly as I can. If you want more, there are many more resources on the podcast and my blog. Go to my website, davidpendergrass.com, and you can see a full list of the podcast, and my blog is available for free. Are you active in a church right now? I'd be happy to come out to your church and do all kinds of classes and workshops there. Check out davidpendergrass.com, davidpendergrass.com for more information. And may God in His great grace give you even just a glimpse of His kingdom this week. See you next time.